$100. That's it. That's all this is about. Right now, in your pocket is a phone that can turn that $100 into a real, owned piece of the largest companies on Earth in about the time it takes to order a coffee. Not 10,000, not the salary you wish you had, just $100. About what you'd spend on one dinner out. And here's the strange part, the part it took me far too long to believe. That $100 put in the right place today matters far more than $1,000 put in the same place 5 years from now. Not a little more, dramatically more. And almost nobody starts, not because they can't find $100, but because somewhere along the way, they were handed a lie. That investing is for people who already have money. That you have to be rich first, and then you get to invest. I want to show you today that it is exactly backwards. You don't invest because you're rich. People become rich slowly and quietly because they started investing when they had almost nothing. Now, before you roll your eyes and click away, let me be honest with you right from the start. This is not one of those videos that promises to turn your $100 into a fortune by next month. Some coin, some hot stock about to explode. I find that kind of content genuinely dangerous. It sells you a lottery ticket and calls it investing. I'm not doing that. What I'm going to do is walk you through exactly what happens when you put your first $100 to work, what you're actually buying, where to put it, and the one mistake almost everyone makes that turns that first $100 into nothing. And by the end, the answer to "how do I start" is going to feel completely obvious. Not because I told you, but because you'll understand the machinery underneath it. And when you understand the reason behind the rule, you never forget the rule. So let's build this from the ground up. The first thing you have to understand is what investing actually is, because most people carry a slightly wrong picture in their head. And that small wrongness is the source of all the fear. When most people hear investing, they picture a screen full of flashing red and green numbers, a casino floor where you gamble and hope. That is not investing. That's noise. Here's what investing actually is. When you buy a share of a company, you are buying a tiny piece of a real business. Real buildings, real employees, real customers handing over real money every single day. You become, in a small and literal way, an owner. Picture a giant office building with 1,000,000 bricks in it. Buying a share is buying one brick. Small, but yours. And every month that building collects rent, a tiny sliver of it belongs to your brick. That's the whole thing. You are not gambling on a number. You are buying a slice of the productive machinery of the world and letting it work for you while you sleep. Now here's the question that stops most people cold. But the good companies cost hundreds of dollars a share. I've got 100. I can't even afford one. 10 years ago, you'd have been right. That was a real wall. But the wall is gone, and most people don't know it fell. Because of something called fractional shares, you can now buy a piece of a piece. If a share costs $400, you buy a quarter of it for $100. If it costs $1,000, you buy a tenth. You are no longer locked out by the price tag. And on top of that, almost every major brokerage now charges 0 commission. No fee to buy, no fee to sell. The two barriers that kept ordinary people out for a century, the price of a share and the cost of the trade, both quietly disappeared, and almost nobody noticed. But knowing you can start with $100 is the easy part. Where that 100 goes next is where almost everyone quietly ruins it. And I'm going to show you the exact mistake in a minute. So the account comes first, and it's simpler than anyone makes it sound. Opening a brokerage account takes about the same effort as opening a new email. Your name, a link to your bank, done in an afternoon. If you want the even better version, you open a Roth account, where the money grows and eventually comes out completely tax-free. Same 10 minutes. But hear me on this. The account is just the door. Opening it is not the goal. Almost nobody who fails at this fails because they picked the wrong account. They fail at the very next step. Because now you're standing inside, staring at thousands of companies, and you have to decide what to actually buy. And this is where I tell you the one mistake. The one that turns that first $100 into nothing. The mistake is trying to be clever, putting your whole precious 100 on a single hot stock. The one your coworker won't stop talking about, the one that's already up 200%, the one that can't lose. That's not investing. That's the lottery ticket again, in a nicer suit. Here's what you do instead, and it's almost disappointingly boring. You buy something called a low-cost index fund. Now stay with me, because this is the quiet miracle most people never understand. An index fund is not one company. It's a single basket holding hundreds of the biggest companies in the country at once. Put your $100 into a broad index fund, and you are not betting on one business to survive. You own a tiny slice of 500 of them at the same time. If one collapses, it barely registers because 499 others are carrying you. You've traded the thrill of maybe getting rich on one stock for the near certainty of growing with the entire economy. And over the long run, the entire American market has historically returned around 10% a year on average. Not every year. Some years it falls hard. But averaged across decades, that's the engine you're plugging into. And it costs almost nothing to own. A good index fund charges a few cents per $100 per year. A few cents. Now here's the part I really want you to hold on to, because this is where the $100 stops being about the $100. Once you've bought it, you do one more thing, and then you do almost nothing forever. You automate it. You set the account so a small amount, even $5, moves in on its own every payday and buys more of that same boring fund without you lifting a finger. You make the decision once, and the machine keeps the promise for you. And then the hardest part, the part that quietly separates the people who build wealth from the people who don't. You leave it alone. You do not check it every day. You do not panic and rip it out when the news is scary. You do not touch it. Because the growth doesn't come from being clever. It comes from time. From that little brick sitting in that giant building, collecting rent, and buying more bricks with the rent, for years, quietly, while you live your life. And here's the truth underneath all of it. Your first $100 is not going to make you rich. I need you to hear that plainly. Left to grow, it might become a few hundred over a decade. That's not the point. The point is what it does to you. The moment you put that first $100 to work, something changes that has nothing to do with money. You stop being someone who is going to invest one day, and you become an investor today. And the person who invests $100 at 25 becomes the person who invests 1,000 at 40. Not because they got rich, but because they became the kind of person who does this. The first $100 doesn't buy you wealth. It buys you the identity. And the identity is what builds the wealth. So let me leave you where we started. You, $100, and a belief that you had to be rich first. That belief is the only thing standing between you and starting. Not the money. You have the money. It's the price of a dinner. So here's the one thing I want you to do. Not tomorrow, not when you have more, but today, before the feeling fades. Open the account. Just the account. 10 minutes. You don't even have to buy anything yet. Just open the door. Because the person who opens it today is a different person than the one who keeps saying, someday. If this changed how that $100 feels in your pocket, stick around. The next video shows you what happens to it, year by year, when you leave it alone. Subscribe, and I'll see you there. Now go. Open the account. It's the smallest thing, and it might be the one that changes everything.